Hi guys, it's me, ChazRHD, and welcome tonight to this race review for the 2021 Austrian Grand Prix, which of course took place about, 3.5, 4 hours ago in the Red Bull Ring in Austria, and it was a pretty good race. It wasn't a great race, it wasn't an absolute classic, but there were plenty of great battles, great moments, I think, during the race that we're definitely going to remember, throughout the season. And I thought, honestly, it was a pretty good race, definitely better than the Styrian Grand Prix, which was just a bang average Grand Prix for me from a week ago. But yet, in this review, we're going to get into all the teams and drivers. Also, I'm going to analyse the Norris-Perez incident, the two separate Leclerc-Perez incidents, and the Raikkonen-Vettel incident. And I'll get onto that later on because I'm going to do something kind of special to a certain degree with that part of the stream, so I'll get onto that later on. But hopefully you guys are doing well, hopefully having as good a day as you could possibly be having, and hopefully you're nice and cool and calm after the race finished again about 3.5, 4 hours ago. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a graphic that I normally get from Twitter as to the race results from the Grand Prix, but I do have on the left-hand side the running order from earlier, and here it is. So Max Verstappen, of course, won the Austrian Grand Prix. That is his 4th win at the Red Bull Ring in his career. He's been absolutely brilliant, he has, here in Austria, and this is really his track and Red Bull's track at the moment, for sure, really since 2018. Valtteri Bottas second, also another great driver around the circuit who was just brilliant today compared to his teammate, who we'll get on to soon enough. And then Valtteri Bottas only just finished ahead of Lando Norris in third, who was clearly, for me, the driver of the day. A brilliant performance, honestly, by Lando Norris. Lewis Hamilton fourth, giving away vital points to Max Verstappen. We'll get on to him very, very soon. Carlos Sainz fifth. Great drive by him from 10th to 5th. And a great strategy as well by the Ferrari team. Who thought I'd even be saying that? Great strategy by Ferrari. But it was. Sergio Perez 6th, poor race for him. Ricciardo 7th, Leclerc 8th, and then Gasly 9th, Alonso 10th. And the rest of the order that finished the race but did not finish in the points is Russell P11, Tsunoda P12, Stroll 13th, Giovinazzi 14th, Latifi 15th, and then Raikkonen and Vettel 16th and 17th. They, of course, finish all the way down there because of the incident they had just a few corners before the end of the Grand Prix. And then Mick Schumacher in 18th, Nikita Mazepin 19th, and then 20th, Esteban Ocon. And of course, Ocon retired from the Grand Prix with that unfortunate, I guess you could say, first lap incident with the Alfa Romeo and Williams, which I'm not going to analyse tonight because it was a very basic, simple incident and there's nothing really to analyse about it. A shame for Ocon, but that's just the way it is. He shouldn't really be qualifying in that position, to be in that position anyway, so it's kind of his problem to a certain extent, you know, putting himself in harm's way there and having also a poor start to the Grand Prix. But before we get into the race winners of this Grand Prix, let's first get into the world champions Mercedes, who you have to say right now are looking the complete opposite of what world champions are. They look very, very poor right now compared to what we've seen in the last few years, starting with Lewis Hamilton, who had just a really poor Grand Prix by his standards. So, of course, once Perez was in the gravel trap trying to pass Lando Norris on the exit of turn 4 on the safety car restart, Lewis Hamilton then got past him and then set after Lando Norris. And during the watch along, I thought, right, Hamilton, saying 5 laps at most, will be past Lando Norris. And it took him, 10 to 15 laps, I think, to pass Lando Norris, and he completely destroyed any hope there of, getting after Max Verstappen. And I know Norris today was quick, and the Mercedes cars were not, but at the end of the day, he should have been passing Norris a lot sooner, considering he is still in a better car I mean, of course, he is a better driver than Lando Norris, so I'm afraid he should have been getting that move done a lot sooner than he actually did. And then once he was past Verstappen, of course, lost a lot of time once his front tyres were very damaged from following in the dirty air of Lando Norris. He then pitted, a lap before Max Verstappen. And then once Verstappen pitted, the gap was about 13 seconds. And then, due to the damage Lewis Hamilton had on his car, which was actually caused by himself, I believe. If anyone wants to correct me on that, if I am indeed wrong, then make sure to do so. But I believe the damage was caused by himself running over a curb. And yeah, that definitely had an effect. I'm afraid he just wasn't good enough. And Mercedes overall were not good enough. Because even when Valtteri Bottas got ahead of Lewis Hamilton around, lap 52, lap 53, or something like that, Valtteri wasn't any quicker. He was still losing himself lots of time to Max Verstappen. So Mercedes overall were just very poor. And Lewis Hamilton today was just very downbeat and just looked defeated really the whole Grand Prix. And really after qualifying, where I think he knew Max Verstappen was going to win this Grand Prix and there was nothing really that Lewis Hamilton was going to be able to do about it. So really qualifying was where it all went wrong for Mercedes. And even though in this race, technically speaking, it's been a better result for them, it doesn't feel like a better result. It feels like a result that for the World Championship is even worse, honestly, than say what was expected of them coming into this Grand Prix weekend, which honestly, at least we were thinking that second and third for the two Mercedes cars, which of course is what they got a week ago, we thought that was probably what was going to happen again, at least for the team. For the team. But today, again, Lewis Hamilton had damage on his car that he caused, I believe, by himself. And simply, the Mercedes car was not quick enough to the point where Lando Norris, was able to overtake Lewis Hamilton and was also able to keep up with Valtteri Bottas towards the end of the Grand Prix and was, quite close to passing him. And if it had not been for that 5-second penalty that we'll get into later, whether Norris deserved it or not, Norris would have finished in second place because he had to take it, of course, at his first pit stop. So just shows you that Mercedes today was just incredibly slow. And this is probably their worst performance in the dry that I can remember for a very long time. Probably since Singapore Grand Prix 2015, maybe. That's one that was quite poor. Maybe not as bad as this, but it's up there, considering how great, of course, they have been over the last few years. Today was just very poor and very unlike them. There was no real progress, it seemed, that was made. It was only really made because of, a penalty for Norris and a bit of a mistake or collision, whatever you want to call it, with Perez, with Norris. They didn't really make gains in the Grand Prix, deservedly so. They didn't really do that. So, Mercedes today was just so poor. Valtteri Bottas finishing in second place, he'll be happy with that, but like I said, Mercedes, very poor, I think, from this Grand Prix. And going into Silverstone, they have to win either the British Grand Prix or the Hungarian Grand Prix. If Max Verstappen wins at Silverstone and wins in Hungary, then he'll have at least a lead of, 45 points, which is a lot to be having going into the summer break. So Mercedes have got to win. Like I said, they've got to win one of the last two races before the summer break, which is in 2 weeks. The first one at Silverstone, and then the final race before the summer break is 2 weeks after that in Hungary, where I do think Mercedes will have a good chance there of winning there, because they have had a good record there without doubt. Silverstone is a 50-50 for me right now, because I do think Max Verstappen and Red Bull will be very quick at Silverstone, because definitely in qualifying, I think the track does suit the car nicely, but I do feel as though in the race, Mercedes will come back at Red Bull. And then in Hungary, as I said, I think Mercedes are probably going to be, overall, at least pace-wise, the strongest. I don't think necessarily that'll mean that that's most likely going to be a race win for them, but I would favour Mercedes a tad more at the Hungaroring rather than Red Bull. So they need to use that if that does turn out to be the case. They need to use that to their advantage, and they have to, as I said, they have to get a race win before the summer break, because if they get beaten 2 times again at Silverstone, which of course is technically for the team their home Grand Prix because they are based very close by, and also Lewis Hamilton's home Grand Prix, and then lose in Hungary as well, where historically they've been so good, then it's going to take a lot in the second half of the season, put it that way, for Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes to win this year's World Championship, because this man, right now, without doubt, is the best driver in Formula 1 in terms of pure performance right now. Today, like I said during the stream earlier, obliterated everyone, pounded everyone into the dirt. There was absolutely nothing that was going to stop Max Verstappen winning today. Just a brilliant performance. And I know, sorry, I know Lando Norris, performed very well. I think was driver of the day because, to finish on the podium in that McLaren that we didn't think was that quick. And if you look at where Daniel Ricciardo was, for example, in the Grand Prix and the Grand Prix weekend overall, I think Norris, was driver of the day. But Max Verstappen, I think we also have to put right up there because his performance was just so great and so commanding. So, yeah, Max Verstappen for me was absolutely brilliant in today's Grand Prix, and this was probably the most dominant race win I have seen since probably Lewis Hamilton last year at the Hungarian Grand Prix, where Hamilton there was just miles quicker than anyone else. It was similar to that, probably a bit more dominant than that, but similar. And of course, last year, Lewis Hamilton brilliantly won the championship. Will Verstappen do the same? It looks likely. I'll say that. It does look likely that could happen. I'm still not going to say it is because we have seen a gap of what it is now, 32 points. We have seen those gaps turned around in the past. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Lewis Hamilton will not win the championship. I still believe Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes will find a way back in this title fight. But the more Verstappen pulls away, the harder that becomes. As we have seen so far in the last, 3 or 4 races especially. Now for Sergio Perez, of course, he had a difficult race. The incident with Norris we'll get into in just a moment. And yeah, after that, of course, dropped into the midfield. Didn't really have any pace and also was held up quite a bit in the traffic behind Leclerc. Who else? You had Gasly, Tsunoda, Stroll, Vettel. Also Ricciardo in there after the pit stop. So yeah, Sergio Perez really just didn't have the pace to find his way through the traffic. He did actually have good pace towards the end of the Grand Prix because on track he only finished about 3 or 4 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. And again, on track, Perez did finish in 5th, but of course in the race results finished in P6 because of the 10 seconds worth of penalties he acquired during the race. So yeah, very difficult day for Perez, but of course we will now get into the incidents, and I'm now going to hide the order on the left-hand side because, just to let you guys know, I'm now going to start bringing back the Monday analysis or incident analysis videos, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to record my incident analysis from now on. If I ever do any incidents that I deem necessary to do an analysis of, I will record the part of the stream where I do the analysis and then upload it as a clip basically from the stream. So that's what I'm going to do tomorrow at 12 p.m. UK time. So if you guys want to comment down below on the video tomorrow as to what you think of the incident, then that video, like I said, it will be out tomorrow at 12 p.m. UK time for you guys to give your thoughts as to the incidents that I'm about to go into. And I'll press record now. And then we'll get into this incident analysis. And like I said, it'll be the Norris-Perez incident, and then the two separate Leclerc-Perez incidents, and then also Vettel versus Raikkonen. But we'll start off, of course, with Norris and Perez. And here we go, guys. Let's now get into the analysis of some of the incidents of the 2021 Austrian Grand Prix. And we'll start off with probably the most controversial of the Grand Prix. And that was the Norris-Perez incident from, I think, lap 5 of the Grand Prix, where Lando Norris, of course, he got a 5-second time penalty. It did cost him in relation to finishing in second in the Grand Prix. And let's first get into that. So as you can see here by this screenshot, Sergio Perez is trying to go round the outside at turn 4. And at this point, still turning right, obviously trying to make the corner and get ahead of Norris, and they are now side by side. But as you will see, in terms of where Lando Norris places his car and the steering angle for Perez, and I'll show with Norris in a moment, I don't really think there's anything that could have been done any differently, really, from Lando Norris's side or Sergio Perez's side. So Sergio Perez, you can see, turning right, trying, of course, to make the corner. Then at this point, still trying to, turn right to make the corner, and is now on the very edge of the circuit. And then at this point is now in the gravel. Now, keep an eye in relation to the incident I'm going to review later on with Perez and Leclerc, where Perez forced off Leclerc at the same corner. Please remember the position of Lando Norris's left front tyre there on the curb, because it will be important to note in terms of what I believe the differences are between these incidents. So Perez, like I said, turned right through that whole corner, as you could see there clearly, but just simply couldn't make the corner. But now I'll show Lando Norris's on board and show why, in my view, I don't believe it was a penalty. So here is Norris's on board. Sorry that the footage is not, or the still picture in terms of quality is not that great, but this is the only one I could really find. So as you can see here, down to turn 4, Perez trying to go round the outside. Now at this point, Lando Norris, he's basically hitting the apex of the corner of turn 4, turning right, of course, into a right-hander. And honestly, he's not, running wider into the corner than he would normally do. He's not missing the apex, as I said. So he's carrying on, really, the normal, I think, racing line through the corner. And then you can see at this point, Norris still turning right through the corner. And then at about this point, does Lando Norris start to, straighten the wheel up. But at that point, of course, Sergio Perez is in the gravel. And by the way, at this point where Norris starts to straighten up, that is the earliest point that he starts to do that. So when you look back through the incident here, because Norris and both Perez, as I showed a moment ago, are both turning right, Norris is not trying to, say, straighten the wheel to try and force Perez to be on the outside. They're both trying desperately to make the corner and to continue being really side by side. I just don't see, from Lando Norris's point of view, again, as you can see, clearly turning right here, and by the time he starts to straighten up, Perez is already off the circuit. I just don't see, because Norris didn't take really any different lines through the corner, didn't make contact with Sergio Perez, I don't see what Lando Norris could have done any differently in this incident. So I don't see how really you could penalise him, because essentially you're penalising him for not giving Perez the outside line, therefore the position. Because the only way, in my opinion, this would have been avoided is if Norris just let him go around the outside. But as we saw, Perez was not ahead really that much of Lando Norris at all through turn 4. They were essentially, as I said, side by side. So I don't see, like I said, what Lando Norris can do here. And again, keep an eye on that left front tyre, because it will be interesting to compare in a moment in terms of, you know, Norris's position on the curb there in terms of apparently forcing Perez off circuit and what Perez does in a moment to Leclerc. But when it comes to Norris and Perez, I do not believe that Lando Norris deserved a penalty, because I just don't see what Lando Norris could have done any differently other than giving up the position, which at that point, you can't penalise drivers for racing. Yes, the corner is very tight and, you know, it's hard to get 2 cars through there, but, you know, you cannot penalise drivers for trying to hold on for their position. And Norris, simply for me, did, I think, what any other racing driver would have done. So I just don't see, really, again, what he could have done any differently. Now, in relation to kind of a similar incident at the same corner later in the race between Sergio Perez and this time Charles Leclerc, Perez, I believe, was a lot more deserving of a penalty than Lando Norris was, and I will show why in just a moment. So here you can see Charles Leclerc in the slipstream with DRS safe, and so is Sergio Perez, of course, because Perez is within a second of Daniel Ricciardo ahead. And then here you can see Leclerc now starting to go around the outside. And here Leclerc, of course, turning right, and he did this, of course, a week ago to Yuki Tsunoda, and it was a great move. And he's trying to do it yet again, this time to Sergio Perez. But the real differences between the Norris-Perez incident and the Perez-Leclerc incident at turn 4 is Perez, I think, twice makes contact with Charles Leclerc. Now, I don't believe at this point got the absolute, right frame for when the contact was made, but it was very close around this time. And if you go back and watch the onboard clip, you will see Leclerc and Perez at about this point making contact. And then, yet again, at this point, where I do believe I have got a slight frame there of contact being made, again, that's 2 pieces of contact, which means that Perez has a lot more so forced Charles Leclerc to go wider and off the circuit because of the contact that has been made. So Charles Leclerc really, I think, has a lot more to complain about, I think, at that corner than Sergio Perez did, with Lando Norris. Now, if we go back on board here with Charles Leclerc, you can see about this point, and you can see the 2 L's just behind the front right tyre of Charles Leclerc's car. That is the end fence of the Red Bull front wing. So that is about where contact is made the first time. And then here is about where it's made the second time, which is what forces Charles Leclerc to go a bit wider. But also, again, when I was saying earlier in terms of keep a keen eye on where Lando Norris's left front tyre is on that curb, now look at Sergio Perez and we'll compare it. So Perez, his left front tyre is a lot more further over to the left than Norris's was. So you can see Leclerc's there. Now look at Norris's from this. Norris's a lot more, say, to the centre of the curb, maybe slightly more centre right of the curb. But when we go back to Perez, he's on the very edge of that red and white curb, which is why, in my opinion, Sergio Perez was a lot more deserving of a penalty for this than Lando Norris was in that incident, of course, with Norris and Perez on lap 4 of the Grand Prix. And this, I think, was the clearest out of, say, the Norris-Perez, and then this incident. This was definitely the clearest penalty, if there was going to be one, in my view. But then, of course, these two had another incident later in the Grand Prix, not actually that many laps later, at turn 6, which, of course, is a couple corners later on. And I'll just cut to this now. So this is Charles Leclerc's on board. Now at this point, Leclerc is progressively going around the outside of Perez, is, getting further alongside Perez. And then, as I'll show, as you can see there with the Mobile 1 side of the front wing there, you can use that in terms of judging how far alongside Charles Leclerc is getting. You can see now Leclerc progressively getting more so alongside. And then at this point, you can just see he's getting basically fully alongside Sergio Perez now. And then at about this point is where Leclerc would be hoping that he would just about have enough grip around the outside to make the move going into, say, turn 7. But, as I'll show in a moment with Sergio Perez is on board, Sergio Perez, and I think this is a lot more marginal of an incident than the turn 4 incident between these two, but Sergio Perez, I think the reason he got a penalty was because he didn't make, I think, the reasonable adjustment that he needed to avoid forcing Leclerc off the circuit here. So you can see Perez, at this point where Leclerc goes into the gravel, you can see just a dark bit in the left-hand side, just to the left of Charles Leclerc's front left tyre. That is Perez's front wing. So Sergio Perez is using really the racing line, even though Leclerc has the racing line around the outside, which is what I mean. Sergio Perez did not adjust his car more so towards the middle or slightly away from the racing line to allow Charles Leclerc to have enough room around the outside there. And proof of that is here. So you can see here going into the exit of turn 6, Perez, fully alongside Leclerc. Leclerc has more grip around the outside and more momentum around the outside. But at this point, you can actually see with Sergio Perez's steering wheel, he, loses the car slightly, but you can see that by his right front tyre there, and also his front wing, which of course the very end of it is just to the right of his right front tyre in terms of sticking out from the car, he isn't giving Leclerc reasonable room for Leclerc to stay on the circuit without going into the gravel, which he did partially on the exit of turn 6. So I do believe Perez also deserved a penalty for this. But again, this is a lot more marginal than the one at turn 4. And I can understand arguments against why Perez got the penalty for this incident. I completely understand the arguments. It's a very, again, marginal incident. These things can happen very easily, especially when you're fighting over such small bits of racetrack. I completely understand that, but in my view, Perez should have, in a way Carlos Sainz did for Sergio Perez a year ago when Perez went around the outside of that corner, should have made enough of a reasonable adjustment to allow Charles Leclerc to be still on the circuit. So I think Perez there did deserve a couple penalties. And for the final incident we'll cover is the one between Vettel and Raikkonen on the last lap of the Grand Prix. And this one is a slam dunk. This was definitely Kimi Raikkonen's fault. So of course they're coming through just behind the Williams of Russell, the kink of turn 6. And Sebastian Vettel clearly has better grip. He's on, I think, fresher tyres at this point and has better drive off the corner. And Vettel really should be allowed the position here. But Kimi Raikkonen, as you can see by the slight of him turning right there at the very bottom of the picture, he just simply doesn't allow Sebastian Vettel to have the corner and to have the position when really he should do. I know, of course, it's the final lap and he wants to fight for position. I get that, but Raikkonen just simply did not use, I think, the space on track well. Because as you can see here, as Sebastian Vettel is moving past him, there is inevitably going to be contact because Raikkonen is still too much towards, say, the centre or centre-right of the circuit when Vettel is already on that part of the circuit. Really what Raikkonen should be doing is moving more so over to the left where you can see there is clear space there for Kimi Raikkonen to go to, for Raikkonen, one, to still fight the position, but secondly, to avoid contact, but he never does that. He just stays in that position, and then inevitably, they meet in the middle, basically, and contact is made, And then thankfully, they, even though they did go into the gravel, thankfully they didn't hit the barriers and it wasn't a serious incident, even though, of course, it did cost them possibly getting into 11th place with the Williams just ahead of them. But yeah, make sure, guys, to comment down below what you thought of my analysis of these incidents, and also what you think of what happened with these particular incidents in the 2021 Austrian Grand Prix. So there you go, that's that recording done, and again, that will be out tomorrow at 12 p.m. UK time. And again, you guys can comment down below on this video or the one tomorrow on what you thought of my analysis, and also what you think in general of these incidents and who was at fault, who could have done what. Just let me know in, again, this video or the video coming tomorrow instead. So now let's get into the rest of the teams. And I have just seen a good comment from Ronan Brady, who says, Chaz, your analysis is all well and good in slow motion, but think about it in real time. That is true, but these drivers, in terms of precision and, just placing their car very well, they are able to make those adjustments real time. They absolutely are able to do that. And I just think, again, Perez, I think, could have made the reasonable adjustments, because I think he was, Leclerc was faster than him at that part of the Grand Prix, and I think he really should have been letting Leclerc have the outside there, because it was never going to end well. And for Norris and Perez, it was just, for me, a racing incident. I don't see how it was worthy of Norris having a penalty. Yeah, I think Lando Norris, like I said, I don't think he deserved a penalty, because, again, I just don't think there's anything different he could have done. Again, you can think about it in real time as well. Forget slow motion like I've just showed. In real time, what could he have done any differently? He defended his inside position, didn't run any wider than, say, Perez did with the Leclerc incident at the turn 4. Hit the apex. Again, didn't run too wide on the exit curb. I just don't understand what Norris was supposed to do other than let him through. Which, again, you cannot get to the point where you're punishing drivers essentially for the crime of racing, because then you create almost a fear of racing because you might be penalized. I just don't think that I just don't think that should be a possibility, that you essentially in that situation are punishing drivers again for the mere crime of racing. I just don't see how I just don't see how that ends well, I guess you could say. Let me just see if there's any other comments here from you guys. Richard Reed says, I don't think so, Chazzy, you gone with the Windman, this Red Bull fast. Lewis Hamilton didn't drive well today. I don't think anyone can even claim that. Ronan Brady says, in his opinion, only Kimi Raikkonen's incident was a penalty. I mean, it is the clearest of the 4 that I analysed, but... And I can completely understand if you think the Perez-Leclerc thing was just hard racing, or... the Norris Perez and the second Perez Leclerc incident. I can completely understand why you would think that, but there are rules. You can't force people into gravel traps like Perez did, for example, at turn 4 on Charles Leclerc. And I think, again, what makes it more clear for me in terms of Perez being more at fault than Norris was is, again, Perez made contact with Leclerc twice and was further over to the left, as I clearly showed, than Lando Norris was. Scott Doro says, got to say this analysis is a diamond of your channel. Thank you very much for that. And, you know, at the end of the day, not everyone's going to agree with what I say. I'm not a racing driver. My real opinion is formed from the rule book and the interpretation of mine of the rule book in terms of the reasonable interpretation of the rule book, but also my experience of watching Formula One for the last 10 years. And even though it's not real racing, I will say my experience of league racing on the F1 game does kind of help form my analysis. And again, it's not the same. It's a video game. I get that. But it does help form an analysis because it kind of allows you to put yourself in the position of, if I was in a league race and this happened to me, what do I think should happen in terms of penalties, and would I be angry? Or so that's really what I let form my analysis. And again, I don't always get it right. It is a matter of opinion, really, most if not all of the time. An interpretation, really, of the rule book and what you find to be reasonable, or, you know, just in general, just about okay. But yeah, I think, I'm not being unreasonable either way. I'm not saying clear penalty, clear this, clear that. I'm just trying to be as reasonable as possible, given that, again, and Ronan Brady did make a great point that, yeah, these things happen at real time. And that kind of explains what I was on about with the Norris Perez incident. I just don't see what anything differently could have been done there. They just simply, you know, fighting for the same piece of racetrack. There's not enough track there for two cars in that exact position, and Perez simply ran out of road. I don't see what Norris is supposed to do other than just let him through. Anyway, I think we'll go on now to the rest of the teams. But again, if you want to give your opinions on the analysis I just gave, then make sure to comment below on this video, and also comment below on the video coming tomorrow, where I'm sure there'll be plenty more people commenting about what they thought of the incidents and whether they deserve penalties or not from that Grand Prix. Right, and also we'll get back the sidebar order for you guys, so you can see, of course, what the finishing order was in relation to the results. So, next up is Ferrari, and today was, maybe except for Leclerc's couple bits of contact with Sergio Perez, was probably the best it was going to be. Carlos Sainz finishing in 5th. I've got to say, Carlos Sainz has really gone under the radar this season. He's actually beaten Leclerc in the last 3 Grand Prix. He's also beaten, of course, in Monaco. He's been driving very well to Carlos Sainz, and I think he has, like I said, been under the radar, underrated this season. He's only 2 points behind Charles Leclerc, as I'll show later on, in the Drivers' Championship. So I think Carlos Sainz has had a very underrated first season so far at the Scuderia, and 5th place is a great result for Ferrari. That's pretty much the best they could hope for. And also, Carlos Sainz only finished, 10 to 15 seconds behind Hamilton, which, if you said that to Ferrari, finishing that far, or that close rather, to Lewis Hamilton, they would have been very happy with that in terms of their pure pace, and would have been hoping for a good finishing position, and they got it with Carlos Sainz in 5th. A great strategy as well, going, as long into the race as they could on the hard compound tyre, which is what I said. If anyone starting on the hard tyre, back in my race preview earlier today, I said, anyone starting on the hard compound should be doing that. That's exactly what Ferrari did, and you could see it paid off very well, because he was able then to pass Tsunoda, Leclerc, Ricciardo, and then, of course, have enough pace to finish ahead of Sergio Perez for P5 with the penalties that Sergio Perez had. Charles Leclerc will be disappointed to be beaten by his teammate again, but I still think he had a good race. I mean, he did finish, higher than he started. Started, of course, in P12 and finished in P8. Can't really complain that much, but I think he will start to worry a bit that he's losing out a bit compared to Carlos Sainz. So he will want to improve going into Silverstone, where, well, historically, he has been very strong. Carlos Sainz, in the races, tends to be very strong at Silverstone, but not necessarily over a single lap in qualifying. So, we'll see what happens there. But Ferrari, very good result. 14 points. That's, brilliant for the Scuderia. Not as good as McLaren, of course, who scored 21, but, doing the best really they could, I think, in this Grand Prix, given the circumstances of how the race happened. Lando Norris, a great result for him, finishing in P3, again, without the penalty that I don't think he should have had. I think it should have been second place, really. A great drive. He was driver of the day and probably the driver of the weekend. Max Verstappen, I think, very close with him there. But Lando Norris, was phenomenal, without doubt, in this Grand Prix. And just again shows that I think he has been the star of the season. And you could certainly argue he's been the best driver this season in Formula One, which nobody saw coming for this season. I mean, maybe we saw some great performances coming from him, but not on this consistent a basis. I mean, he has not had a bad weekend, really, yet. I mean, the Spanish Grand Prix wasn't great, still drove well, and like I said, hasn't had a bad weekend. Has finished in the top 5 so many times. He's now 4th in the Drivers' Championship and only a point behind, I believe, Sergio Perez. He's actually gaining on Perez. It's just incredible. Absolutely incredible. And going into the next Grand Prix at Silverstone, which of course will be his home Grand Prix, of course he'll be super pumped up for that. And you never know what could happen there. You just never know what could happen for Norris at the British Grand Prix. And hopefully he'll put in a great performance there. But clearly driver of the weekend. And what a great performance for him. And another great result, of course, for McLaren. And for Daniel Ricciardo, his teammate, I thought Ricciardo did very well today. Started the race in 13th. His strategy was very well executed by McLaren. It was exactly what it needed to be. Like I was saying in the race preview, pitting around lap 30 from the fresh medium tyre onto the hard. They did that, and it worked out very well. And considering that this is one of Daniel Ricciardo's weaker circuits, this was probably the best it was really going to be. So I think Ricciardo's had a very good race, driven very well. Yes, Norris is clearly better than him right now, but I think Norris is driving at such an incredible level right now that I just don't think Daniel Ricciardo really can be expected right now to beat him. But also, again, the last couple races, and let's say the questionable pace over a single lap, again, can be explained by Ricciardo just simply isn't that great at the Red Bull Ring, especially over a single lap. So, like I said, I think Ricciardo is a good race. And I think she'll be very happy with this. I think he's up to 8th in the Drivers' World Championship as well. So, great for Ricciardo. And I think definitely at Silverstone, he will be much better, certainly, in qualifying there. Next up, Aston Martin. Aston Martin effectively today paid the price of having a good qualifying and starting on the soft compound tyre for the Grand Prix. Finishing 13th and 17th, which is not the result they needed. They needed to finish in the points yet again, but they just simply couldn't do so. And again, paid the price for starting on that soft compound tyre. Can't really fault the drivers' pace during the Grand Prix. They did the best of what they had. But simply, they just didn't have the correct strategy for this race. And really, the same does go also for AlphaTauri. Pierre Gasly, though, did very well to still end up in the points, but like I said, it just was destined for Aston Martin to not be a good enough race for them, again, because of the strategy they had that they were forced into, really, by their own tyre choice in Q2. So, I think next time Aston Martin will probably try what Ferrari did and try their best to get through on a harder compound, rather than going for the glory on a Saturday. And we'll see what they do at Silverstone, where I do think Aston Martin, certainly in the race, there will be pretty quick. And of course, it is a home Grand Prix for them, not just in terms of the brand, but also they're based at Silverstone. So, should be a good weekend there for them. And they always tend to be quite good at Silverstone. For AlphaTauri, Pierre Gasly did very well to get into the top 10, considering, again, he was on a strategy where he was always destined, really, to lose positions. Honestly, Gasly in this race, I thought did the best with what he had. Again, with the strategy he had as well. Can't really ask any more. He executed the two-stop race well, was very close in the end to passing Charles Leclerc for P8, but he just wasn't able to get close enough before the end of the Grand Prix. And yeah, I think he did the best with what he had. And I will say, though, even though it's 9th and Tsunoda 12th, again, Tsunoda really punished for the tyre choice of AlphaTauri in qualifying. Even though it's only 2 points, remember, in their fight for 5th in the Constructors, it's very big, because that means they've gained 2 points on Aston Martin, who didn't score, and have gained 1 point on Alpine, who, of course, did score with Fernando Alonso. So it's actually a very good day for them in terms of the Constructors' Championship, because their aim is undoubtedly to finish in the top 5 in the Constructors, and if they can do it, it would be a great season for the AlphaTauri team. And honestly, I kind of hope they do finish in 5th, because this team has been threatening to do it for a long time, and we have to remember, compared to Aston Martin, Alpine, they are a lot smaller of a team, so it would be a great story if AlphaTauri were to accomplish that, and they are clearly on their way to doing that. For Alpine, shame, of course, for Esteban Ocon, but simply wrong place, wrong time. And as I said, if he qualified higher, he wouldn't be in that position. For Alonso, really made up for, what happened on Saturday. Of course, what happened on Saturday, he couldn't do anything about. He would have qualified probably in 8th for the Grand Prix. And actually, I think things worked out better that he started in 14th place, because he was able to be on the right tyres rather than the wrong tyres for the start of the Grand Prix, then for the rest of the race as well, and was able to have authority with Alpine and freedom when it came to when he pitted, and were able then to execute a good race strat for him. And it ended up, well, of course, finishing in P10. I've got to say, his battle with George Russell for 10th place was a very good battle. Probably one of the best battles of the season so far, maybe the best. It was brilliant between two drivers who are very talented. Of course, Alonso has said that he believes Russell will be a future world champion. Of course, Alonso is a 2-time world champion. Probably in his career has deserved a slight bit more than that, considering how great he has been. And yeah, it was just a great battle. And I think if Russell does fulfill that prophecy that Fernando Alonso has set for him, then we could look back at this as a real titanic scrap that was a real indicator as to the talent of Russell, and also the talent of Fernando Alonso, who just never gives up and is so relentless in his pursuit for more in racing. And yeah, good for Alpine that they scored the point, and they of course do gain only 1 point in Aston Martin, the team ahead of them in the Constructors, but at least they're gaining and not losing. For Alfa Romeo, they had the best race they could. Giovinazzi, of course, had a puncture with that incident with Esteban Ocon. Kimi Räikkönen, like I said, was really responsible for that incident with Sebastian Vettel. And really, that was poor, I think, from Räikkönen. I can understand his desperation not to lose position to Vettel, but if he had used a bit more of his brain, I think he would have, moved over more to the left-hand side of the track, and would have let Sebastian Vettel have more so of the circuit there, and they would have got through just fine. And Raikkonen probably would have finished the race in 13th rather than 12th. But the problem with Alfa Romeo is simple. They don't qualify well enough, and because even though they do have a very good car on race day and they have good race pace, because they simply cannot qualify well enough, they just can't score points, serious points to really compete with Alpine or Aston Martin in the Constructors' Championship. And that's really, I think, going to plague their entire season. So that's just Alfa Romeo in a nutshell. And it's not just been this season, it's also been 2019 and 2020. Great race pace, but just not enough on a Saturday that's costing them on a Sunday. It's a shame, but it's their own downfall. Williams, George Russell, I thought drove the best he could. P11, did very well to hang on as long as he did ahead of Fernando Alonso. And honestly, finishing in P11 is a great result for him because the Williams should not be that high. Also, got to say, Nicholas Latifi, I thought, had a good race, finishing in 15th. So I think Williams overall be happy with the two drivers and how they performed. But Russell, of course, still, the wait goes on for a points finish for Williams. I don't think he'll ever get it for Williams. I think his first points finish just simply won't come because there's always going to be something going wrong at the end of the day. And yeah, I just don't see how it will happen. It's a shame, but at the end of the day, the reason he didn't finish in the points is not because he didn't drive well enough today. It's simply because the Williams car is not quick enough to finish in the top 10. Let's hope he's in a quicker car next year, whether that's the Mercedes or maybe the Williams is a bit quicker next year. And of course, they will benefit Williams next year from finishing low down in this year's championship in terms of developing next year's car, because it will allow them more time to develop next year's car, which, you never know, Williams could be a bit of a midfield outfit next season, but at the moment, they are still quite poor, and Russell is making them look quite respectable. And of course, Haas F1 were at the back in 18th and 19th, and here are your top 10 in the Drivers' World Championship. So Max Verstappen leads by 32 points. That is the first time this season that someone has led the championship by now more than a race win in terms of points. Of course, 25 points for a race win, 26 if you get the fastest lap as well. Verstappen now safe if, say, he retires in Silverstone and Hamilton wins and gets the fastest lap. He is still safe in terms of maintaining his title lead, which is very key going into the summer break, if that does happen. Sergio Perez is in third place. 3 points ahead, not 1 point ahead of Norris, like I was saying earlier. So obviously got that wrong. Sorry about that. Lando Norris in P4 is still looking great. Valtteri Bottas in 5th on 92 points. And then Leclerc 6th on 62. Then you can see Carlos Sainz only 2 points behind on 60 points. A great season so far for Carlos Sainz. And then Daniel Ricciardo on 40 points. Ricciardo, I think, having a good season considering the troubles he's had. So, yeah, I think Ricciardo still having a decent time of it. Pierre Gasly, 9th in the championship, now on 39 points. Only dropping behind Ricciardo because Ricciardo scored, 4 more points than Gasly today. And Sebastian Vettel still, because of the point scoring performances in Monaco, Baku and France, is in 10th position. Now, I don't actually have, again, a graphic of the Constructors' Championship, but I can now read them out to you. So Red Bull are in the lead of the Constructors' World Championship by 44 points. So they are safe if, say, both Red Bulls were to retire from the British Grand Prix. They are pretty much, I think, just about safe from losing the lead of the Constructors' Championship. I mean, if Mercedes were to get a 1-2 and one of them was to get a fastest lap point, then I think it would basically be dead level in the championship. So Red Bull have a comfortable enough at the moment lead in the Constructors. McLaren are third and now 19 points clear of Ferrari, who are in fourth. AlphaTauri are fifth and 4 points ahead Aston Martin, who are sixth. Alpine are seventh on 32 points. And then 8th Alfa Romeo, 9th Williams, and 10th are Haas F1. But there you go, guys. That is the race review for the Austrian Grand Prix of 2021. Let me just cut back to this picture. By the way, again, great to see fans at this Grand Prix this weekend, and a weekend attendance of over 100,000. So great to see that as well, and we will be getting the same for the British Grand Prix in 2 weeks from now. Now, before I go, I just want to update you guys as to the future of the channel in terms of the next 2 or 3 weeks and going into the summer break and that. So there's a couple decisions I have made. So like I said, there will be an incident analysis video at 12 p.m. UK time tomorrow, just like the old days of, a couple years ago. So make sure to go and have a rewatch of that if you have not already seen it or you didn't see all of it. And I also have decided to get rid of the weekend preview. Now, the reason, even though I do enjoy doing them, the reason is because I am currently working a job. It's not a job where I have a permanent contract. It's I'm part of an agency. It's a 0 hours contract, so I do have the freedom to pick and choose when I work. But for my job and for my, standing in the place, I do need to do a shift on a Thursday as well. And because the preview doesn't get enough views also for the channel, so it's not really helping towards the growth of the channel, and I don't really need to do it, to be honest. And like I said, it doesn't really make a difference to the channel in terms of growth. I'm going to stop from now on doing weekend previews. And also, there's so many weekend previews out there for Grand Prix weekends. I'm not really doing anything differently from the rest and standing out uniquely. So, yeah, I'm going to get rid of the weekend preview. That doesn't really change the weekend. I'm still going to do a practice 3 watch along, qualifying, watch along, race preview, race review, incident analysis videos when there's an incident to analyze. I'm still going to do those. And also, another reason I'm going to get rid of the preview is because I want to give myself that day also where, I've been doing the stream. I want to give myself that day also to do a bit more editing work on recorded videos that I have planned for release later this year. At the moment, I have 3 videos planned for release in the summer break. Hopefully, I can release more during the summer break, but there are a couple that I think might have to go on ice probably until September, possibly October. But there should be hopefully at least 3 videos in the summer break, and then probably 1 or 2 in the autumn as well. And I am currently working on them, and again, I do really need that extra day, the Thursday, to work on them, so I would like to have that. So yeah, sadly, if you did enjoy the preview, sadly that's no more, but it's not going to make, like I say, a massive difference to the channel. Now, there's another thing I have got to tell you guys, and I also want your feedback on this. And the way I'll be getting your feedback on this is by doing a poll on the community tab of my page, and also probably a poll in my Discord server as well. So, next Grand Prix, British Grand Prix. The format, as you guys know, is different. So, practice 1, there's only 2 practice sessions, the British Grand Prix. Practice 1 is on Friday afternoon, and then qualifying, as we know it, that's normally on a Saturday, is on Friday evening at 6 p.m. UK time to set the grid for the sprint qualifying race. And then there's a second practice session at midday UK time on Saturday. And then the sprint quali race is at 4:30 p.m. UK time until 5 p.m. UK time. And then the race, of course, is at 3 p.m. UK time on the Sunday. Now, I previously said that I didn't want to do the sprint qualifying watch along because I just cannot take it seriously. But, and I've been encouraged to do this, I would say, by a moderator. I think Rooksford it was, who was asking, maybe consider doing a watch along for the sprint quali race. I've decided to give it, in terms of the decision, to you guys. So I'm going to do a poll, as I said, on the community tab of my channel and also my Discord server. And it's going to start really from tonight. And the poll will probably last, say, a week or so until the poll closes. And then, of course, I'll decide what to do based on what you guys want me to do. And the poll is simple. Do you guys want me to do a watch along for the sprint qualifying race, yes or no? But I will emphasize when I title the poll that if you do pick yes, and this is, if you're going to vote in this poll, I need to say this to you now. If you do vote yes, please remember my commentary will not be serious and I will probably take the piss. 1, I don't like the idea, and I think it's a shit idea. Secondly, it's also a test, so technically we can't take it seriously because it's a test, and it's not something that we know to take seriously yet, because we don't know if it's going to be a permanent feature in Formula 1. And like I said, I don't like the idea, and I'm probably going to take the piss out of it, especially if it turns out to be a shit race, which it really could be. So I need to emphasize that. If you do pick yes, then you do have to also come to terms with the fact that I will not be doing it in the typical serious way in terms of my commentary during the sprint qualifying race. And it will be me taking the piss and not taking it seriously. I'm not going to do it to the point where it's excessive, but, you know, I will do it when I feel as though it needs to be said. And again, it's a test idea, so it's not really anything to be taken seriously as of yet. And I know, of course, it does officially set the grid for the race on Sunday, but I don't really see the finishing order compared to qualifying being drastically different. And remember, the race is only half an hour long, so like I said, I don't see it being drastically different, the order from qualifying to sprint qualifying to the race in terms of the grid for the race on Sunday. But, you know, if you don't want me to do the sprint qualifying watch along, then you could easily vote for no. But again, if you do vote for yes, I have to emphasize that you're going to have to deal with me not being totally serious on that stream. But if you guys want me to do it, I will 100% do it and cover it when, you know, it does happen. And if another one happens, that, you know, they're talking about doing one of the Italian Grand Prix, if, you know, if that one happens, again, I'll put a poll to you guys, you know, do you want me to do it? And if you guys vote yes, then I'll do it. But again, remember, until it becomes clear that this will be happening from now on, I can't take it seriously. And again, I don't like the idea at all, and I'm not going to try and hide that from you guys and pretend like I think the idea has some merit, because it doesn't. It's a completely shit idea which completely destroys the idea of competition in motorsport, in my opinion. So I do have to make that clear to you guys. But we'll see, you know, what you guys think, of course, when I do the poll. And hopefully, you know, you guys, you know, pick, say something clearly, because the last thing I want is it to be a 50-50 vote after a week or so, because it'd be very hard then to see what's going to happen there. But again, if you guys want me to do it, then go for it. But yeah, guys, that has been it for this stream. Thank you guys very much for coming along to this stream and for all the streams this weekend for the 2021 Austrian Grand Prix. Also, thank you guys if you have joined the channel in the last, say, 3 weeks. Of course, this has been a triple header, France and then 2 races in Austria. Been a very manic 3-week period. If you have joined the channel in the last 3 weeks, great to have you along. Thank you very much for watching, tuning in, supporting the channel. Again, appreciate it massively. And hopefully you will join us for the next Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time for the British Grand Prix. And don't forget as well to subscribe if you are new to the channel and you hadn't subscribed for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or just go to my channel page, and whilst you're there, hit the notifications bell. Don't forget to smash the like button, and also don't forget to share this video and channel everywhere you can, and join the Discord server, link below in the description. We have quite a growing community there, and also that is the best place for notifications of my videos and streams. But yeah, I'll put the poll up tonight, one in the Discord server, and then one in the community tab on this channel page that hopefully you guys will, some of you will get a notification for. And again, it's up to you guys. If you want me to do it, then, you know, vote yes. Again, remember though, I won't be taking it too seriously. But if not, then absolutely fine. Your decision. But guys, until the incident analysis video tomorrow that I've already done, but just needs to be uploaded. Until then, and until the British Grand Prix of 2021 in 2 weeks from now, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.